Okay, welcome everybody. We've got a pretty short agenda today. I'll share our agenda over here in ARC. So we've got an update from WDAM from Taylor. I'll go over some of the new RFC that we got in from Kevin. And, like we usually do, we talk a little bit about what's happening in the broader WASM community. So Taylor, hey, you're up first. Would you like to share your screen if you're able to?
I should be able to. I was just making sure I spun everything up. Let me share away. Oh, Liam, I require sharing powers. Or Bailey. I'm not sure who has them.
You.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Let's go ahead and share the desktop. There we go. Okay, so what I just did here, we'll see if this actually works. At the very minimum, I can show you in the terminal. I cannot guarantee I'll show you in the washboard. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to localhost 4000. Excellent. Okay, I see. So I'm using the Docker Compose file we use for our E2E test. So this is five different like hosts that are running as part of a single lattice. You'll see that this one's on the moon, and I can do like one's in US Taylor West. Anyway, so we have that all running, and I'm going to go ahead and go back over here, and we have a db copy. Oh, sorry, right here. So this is the manifest that we're doing. So this is just like a simple manifest that runs 4 replicas wherever we want. And actually, I'm gonna go bolder and try to run it everywhere. So let's do we'll run it across all hosts. So this is a slightly more complex one, and it spreads the echo capability provider or echo actor and the HTTP capability provider everywhere in every host across here. And so this is just, if you haven't seen a WDAM manifest before, this is what it looks like. It says, like, I have my name, I have the names of the components I'm running, what image it is, and then I can say, like, I'm running 5 of them, and they're going to be balanced across 2 on the East Coast, 2 on the West Coast, and 2 on the moon. Then we have the link test for it, and then we're going to run HTTP server on every single one of the hosts. So that's all running there. And yeah, so we run this in the Mare Tranquillitatis, that one, the Tranquility Sea, that is the region on the moon we're running on, Connor. And so let's go ahead and get this started. First things first, we're going to run WDAM. This is just a big long thing, so I have all the logs if something goes wrong. And we're just running it just with some simple flags. This is basically no configuration. So I'm going to run this, and then I'll actually, just for the fun of it, also run a second one, just so you guys can see that this is really easy to run distributed. So I'm just going to do the same one. I'm going to get a second host ID. We're going to use that for some logging stuff in the future. It just gives a unique ID. So now I'm running a second one. You'll see I didn't have to provide any additional configuration. As soon as it gets started, it's still building, of course. I don't know why it's taking so long, but it's building. Sorry, I literally had just built this, but apparently, okay, there we go. So now that's all started up. We have them both running, no extra configuration added. If you haven't seen WDAM before, it's able to do this, so you're able to run it however much you want. And then we'll come over here and make sure I still have that in my buffer, and I'm going to say nats rec, and I'm going to go ahead and put it. So I can do this with Wash, but like I said, I don't have the most recent version installed. So I'm just putting the manifest up there. It just got created. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, let's deploy it. Okay, we're going to deploy it. It's deployed the model. We can go back and we'll see a bunch of things like starting to pop up on the thing here. And we'll give it a second because it's probably going to try to send everything up. And I'm taking a risk running this because I haven't fully tested this scenario yet. But we'll see if everything shows up. So I know it's going to take a second for providers. Don't ask me why. Providers take forever on my machine to download, and I have no idea why.
I mean, we were pretty sure that it's like the Azure registry is says if Taylor.
Yeah, that's what we personally think. But anyway, actors though should be starting here. I could have also been missing something.
And this is especially brave because I know you were just debugging something like 30
Yeah,
minutes
I just
ago.
debugged this
Just
one.
kind of
Okay.
working.
We're going to go ahead and also do this with the simple one just in case. Okay, so that should deploy somewhere. I just don't know where because I didn't specify a host. It also could be, there we go. Okay. So this is spinning up. Don't ask me why the washboard's giving me bad information here, but we can see that it's spun up like 5 actors on US Brooks East over here for me. And eventually the provider will start. I would have to sit around here for another minute or two until I solve what the heck's going on with my internet connection and Azure registry. But, oh, hey, perfect. It's like it heard me. So there is the provider and the link definition for it. So it just all popped up. And we might actually start seeing the other ones pop up too. We'll see if they've. Yeah, we can see at least the provider on every single host. And we have the 5 of them running there. Yeah, it looks like, so yeah, it looks like there is an issue and it spreads it across it. So it's putting 5 where it shouldn't be. But anyway, so we have 4 right here. And I can actually do, this is now pretty instantaneous. Before, if you saw this demo, it was a little bit jittery. So now if I set this to like 2, it probably won't even have time to do it, or it might actually reschedule it to other. Oh no, there it goes, bam, right up to 4. So there's no jitter. It gets to exactly where it needs to go and does it pretty quickly. So anyway, the update here is we have 1 task left, and it's just a minor thing that's going to make it so the logs are less noisy and there's less spamminess going on. It's pretty spammy when we don't do what I'm about to change. And then I'm writing the ED test to figure out exactly why, this use case, if it's not spreading across the host like it should, works properly. So we're going to go ahead and test those, and then this is going to be released. So I'm hoping on Friday I can cut this out for people, and then it'll be fully ready to start using for things and giving it a whirl with whatever wasmCloud stuff you have. So anyway, that is the demo. Any questions? Anything people want to see?
Not really a question, but you put together this really cool project board. I copied the link and yay, hey. And I figured that this is a cool way to kind of look at what remains, right?
Yeah. This is stuff like some of these were going to be okay. Like right now, like when a node's reap, we don't necessarily like trigger reconciliation and stuff. And these are going to probably be moved on to other stuff. Like this task right here is the one that I have left. I actually forgot to mark this as done. And then we have, let's see. We've documented it. Oh yeah, that's something else I can show while we're here because it's a good update. So if we look at the wasmCloud.com, go to docs. So inside of fundamentals, we have a managed application deployment. So this has all your documentation for WASM. This has the introduction to why it exists, how you can define applications, like what it looks like, the different things, like what's a trait, what's a component, why does it matter? That goes through everything right here. And then when we go to, yes, the logo is the best. There's a reason we call it WDAM most of the time, and it sounds like a punch from a comic book. So that's why we have that logo. You have how you can deploy the applications using Wash. So I was doing it directly to the API. Wash does it with like a nice command line. And this has the documentation for the API, everything that's in it. And then if for some reason you get beyond just using it locally, We even have deployment guides for if you want to run this in like an environment you're running, like whether a local lab or whatever it's going on, like how to run it. As you can see, you can run as many as you need for your availability guarantees. And the nice thing, because it's NATS, you can actually run it anywhere so long as it can connect to NATS. We also have, we're going to hopefully move this to another thing later, but this actually is the first time we've put together something on here that shows you how to do some more of it's kind of the intro to if you're doing this for real and you need to set up your NATS, here's how you do the basic credentials and stuff so that you can have different credentials for different people if you wanted to. And this shows like how to use that all. So anyway, that's all in here inside of the doc. So this is all fairly well documented at this point. We're just tying off these loose ends and it'll be ready to go. So like I said, hopefully Friday, as long as I can debug some of the EDE tests and then make sure that it works properly. So any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Questions from streams at all, Bailey, that I can't see right now?
I don't see any right now.
Okay.
And that was a really great update. And so to summarize, you've got WDAM basically ready. We want as much feedback and users as we can get. This will be its first big release, right? This is kind of us saying we think it's feature complete and you should be able to build real things on top of it.
Yep. And feature complete is, to be very clear, means it is there, it can be used, it does all the basic features it says it's supposed to do, with the exceptions that we call out in the README of stuff that we know is missing, and we want like feedback on it. If people are like, yeah, this part really sucks, or I really wish it could do this, like that's what we want from you. So please open issues and give us feedback on it. But this makes it way easier. No more of this manually linking stuff or all that. You can just define it as a WDAM manifest and run it.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? All right, let's get back to our agenda. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, it's Vance. I just
Hey, Vance.
the process model then. So when you run your WADM job, you're running it locally. So that's all of that coordination is taking place in a process where you've started it, right?
That coordination is is technically happening on any of the processes. So the way I'm going to actually be, when I have hopefully a little bit of spare time next week, I am I'm going to create a whole architecture diagram because there are some complexities to the architecture of how it all works, though it mostly manages it for you. Is that everything's connected to NATS, and so the state is stored in NATS, and different messages it's coordinating things using messages across NATS. And so all of the processes can handle can handle one thing at a time from each lattice. So this isn't being synchronized locally. This is being synchronized across the processes running in however many WDAM instances you're running. If you have one, then it's just one that's handling all of it. If you're running 3 or 4, then it's being balanced across the different WDAM instances you have running. And to answer Bailey's question, the core design of how like things get distributed, the work gets distributed is the same. There's just some other stuff that has been added to do some of the coordination between it that wasn't present in the original RFC that I want to document. So yeah, this isn't like handling it locally. This is handling it through basically a work queue, a message work queue that comes in with each message and then it does something with it.
Yeah, I think the original RFC has some cool tips from you and Kevin brainstorming around how you're able to work with different streams, and that helped you solve some of the concurrency issues. So folks that are interested in that sort of thing probably would enjoy that RFC. Did that answer your question, Vance?
Well, it gave me some hints on what I need to do to understand it more completely. So great, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get the architecture diagram out sooner rather than later. I wanted it out there for people who were curious about how it worked. But the key part of it is it's using a work queue where everything gets put into a message queue, and then you have to act and say this was done, and then it can proceed. So it's pretty fault tolerant and really good at the distributed side of things.
Okay.
Alrighty. Do we have any more questions? Okay, our next agenda item is to talk about another RFC that Kevin has written. This is something that we've talked a lot about in the community stream, and we've given different types of motivations for why we want to move here. Kevin kind of wrote them all up together for what the rationale is. Right now, we're on Smithy, and we want to come up with a path to go from Smithy to WIT that's not too frictionful. This describes a couple different phases for being able to do that. Once you go through here, another place that's worth checking out is Kevin went through and came up with some of the initial sort of interfaces that we think we will use. We intend to use wasmCloud once that's more standardized and stabilized, but getting some interfaces that will get us working with our current set of features is the priority. And Kevin's been working with Dan Chiaroloni and Joe over from Deus Labs on standardizing some of the wasmCloud interfaces, but there's quite a lot here. So this is an RFC, aka request for comments. Really interested in what the community thinks about this path. If the risks are kind of acceptable. You know, I've shown off a kind of like a prototype of a lot of this working at the WASM.io conference, and that was, you know, kind of a hit. I think we are somewhere in the range of 65,000 views now on that talk, which doesn't make sense to me or how that could ever happen. But, you know, it was one of the first examples of showing a component built end to end, running in real systems with WIT interfaces defined from some of the earlier wasmCloud APIs. And that all ran within wasmCloud, which was pretty cool. Now we only got 2 interfaces brought over, messaging and key value, and obviously the goal is to do all of them and all of the ones that we have, but it was a pretty good prototype and a good starting point, and we learned a lot. So now I think we're able to pick a path and kind of run it down. Do we have any questions about this one? Okie dokie, moving right along. And so the next one is kind of like our normal broader community. Before I go into this one, do we have any other wasmCloud topics anybody wants to add? Anything we want to talk about? Yeah, okay, this can be a lighter community update today. So I wanted to give a little bit of update from, you know, I'm putting on my Bytecode Alliance hat now, and not necessarily my wasmCloud one. Within the Bytecode Alliance, we've been making a ton of progress on implementation of the component model specification. WasmTime now has the adapter brought over into it. Actually, let me show you that. So if I go over to Bytecode Alliance, and I go to the runtime that we're using within wasmCloud, that's wasmTime. And now the adapter in here, somewhere in here, is the Preview 2 adapter. And maybe I'll go higher. There's some README in here that's pretty good, although I'm not sure where he's at today. So if you watch the talk that I talked about before, the POC that we had built, one of the key things is that you basically build for WASI Preview 1. So the thing that basically all the languages around support right now, if they say they have WebAssembly and WASI support, and then we take this WASM module that is an adapter that takes the Preview 1 and adapts it and outputs a component model binary. So it's still a .wasm, but if you inspect it, instead of the first few bytes saying module, it'll say component. And it also brings over a couple of other things like high-level types within it. Those high-level types include things like strings. If you're familiar with working with WebAssembly, a lot of people, what they had to do is find different ways to stuff everything back into basically numbers and be able to, you know, a lot of people would do things like serialization and deserialization of complex types. Whereas with the component model, we're able to pass around high level types by passing around handles and references. So that's very fast and easy to use and more ergonomic. And it's all designed for language interoperability, which basically means I can write something in Go. And I wish Jordan was here because I can finally say, like, yeah, we can take all these things that we write with Go and we can combine them with all these other things that are written in Rust and any other language that supports the component model and create one unified app. There it is. Okay. I just had to talk through it and then I found it was right there at the top. And this gives you some of those steps to be able to run that adapter. So before, when I talked about it, I pointed people to a different repo. So I wanted to just give a little update that this is kind of the new home for a lot of this stuff, especially within wasmTime. Do we have any questions around that? I think that's the biggest update, is that we're no longer working in this like side preview 2 prototyping, trying to figure out what the heck is this is all going to work and how it's going to come together. And now we're really starting to land things within wasmTime. And I feel like if I'm being very optimistic, I think a lot of this will be, you know, a call for people to start building, call for builders in June on the June wasmTime release. Which is really exciting. And obviously we will bring that boy over as quickly as we can into wasmCloud, the wasmCloud host, and be able to enable that and give feedback from our side. Okay, well, hey, today was a pretty lightweight meeting. I think I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to stop the recording. And so thank you for tuning in, and see you around on the internet.